Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're cracking the code on something we literally all need but, often totally misunderstand, and that is relaxation. We're going to demystify the actual science behind inner calm. So we're moving way past those trendy wellness buzzwords and diving straight into the hard physiological data to understand how our bodies actually unwind. So get this. Can just 5 minutes a day physically shrink the fear center of your brain? I know, it sounds kind of like science fiction, right? But spoiler alert, the clinical data says absolutely yes. Today, we're going to look at exactly how a measly 5 minutes of targeted practice can literally rewire your nervous system and actually alter your brain's physical structure. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll take a top-down scientific journey starting with 1. The science of stress relief, 2. Rewiring brains with meditation, and 3. The breath as our autonomic remote. Then for 4, we'll compare cyclic sighing versus mindfulness, 5. Move into progressive muscle relaxation, and finally, 6. Wrap up with your daily relaxation toolkit.
All right, moving into section 1, the science of stress relief. We live in a world where chronic stress is, let's face it, basically a modern epidemic. But to combat it, we first need to understand what our bodies are biologically doing when we're under all that pressure. So I want you to ask yourself, what actually happens when we relax? Seriously, think about it. I want you to think about this not just as a mental escape, like zoning out in front of the TV, but as a profound, measurable physical shift. Because when you actually relax, you are flipping a literal physical switch inside your body. And this brilliantly illustrates what's going on. On one side, we've got our fight, flight, or freeze state. Your sympathetic nervous system is reacting to a threat. It's dumping adrenaline, spiking your heart rate, and raising your blood sugar. It's an evolutionary response built for survival. But then on the flip side is the autonomic rest and digest state, and that is where true relaxation lives. Your heart rate slows down, and that pesky stress hormone cortisol just drops. Leaving that stress state isn't just about feeling good in the moment. It absolutely actively prevents long-term wear and tear on your cardiovascular system and your brain.
Section 2. Rewiring brains with meditation. We're taking a top-down journey here, starting right up in the brain. We so often think of mindfulness as just taking a quick mental breather, but the scientific reality, it's a literal, physical workout for your brain structure.
To really wrap our heads around this, we need to talk about neuroplasticity. That's the brain's incredible ability to reorganize itself by forming brand new neural connections throughout your entire life. Think of your brain just like a muscle. When you practice meditation to process emotions or really focus your attention, your brain physically adapts to that exercise. It's not just a quick software update, it is a fundamental hardware upgrade for your head.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the hard evidence coming directly from MRI scans. When researchers look at the brains of people who meditate, they actually see increased gray matter density in the hippocampus, which is absolutely crucial for learning and memory. They see a physically thicker prefrontal cortex for better focus, decision-making, and self-control. And yeah, going back to that crazy question we asked earlier, regular meditation actually physically shrinks the amygdala, which is your brain's emotional fear center. How wild is that? And it gets better. Beyond the physical structure, meditation fundamentally changes your brain's electrical activity. Normally, when we're stressed, anxious, or just totally overthinking things, our brain is absolutely dominated by high-frequency beta waves. Meditation actively lowers those anxious beta waves and ramps up calming alpha and theta waves. Alpha waves bring about this great sense of calm and focus, while theta waves induce that deep, deep relaxation and flow state where tasks just feel effortless and your mind is completely clear.
Let's move to section 3 and see how this builds. Breath, the autonomic remote. Traveling down from the brain and into the respiratory system, we're going to look at the breath as a literal, physical remote control for your autonomic nervous system. Now, if you think breathing exercises are just for, yoga retreats and burning incense, think again. Check out this quote from Mark Devine, creator of the SEAL Fit program, who uses a technique called box breathing. He says, "I used it every day in SEAL training. Now I use it for every challenging situation and practice it daily." Guys, these are highly tactical, high-stakes tools used by elite soldiers and police officers to stop that fight-or-flight response dead in its tracks and just bleed off excess stress.
So let's actually try a round of this together right now. Seriously, wherever you are. Sit comfortably, put both feet flat on the floor, and follow along with me for an immediate physiological reset. Ready? Inhale slowly through your nose for 4 seconds. Now hold that breath for 4 seconds. Exhale completely for 4 seconds. And hold with your lungs entirely empty for 4 seconds.
Doing that for literally just a few minutes acts as a total circuit breaker for acute stress.
Moving right along to Section 4, cyclic sighing versus mindfulness. We know breathing works, but are all these techniques created equal? Well, a fascinating clinical trial from Stanford University, published in Cell Reports Medicine, pitted passive mindfulness meditation against active breathwork to see which was scientifically, mathematically more effective. Think of these 4 interventions as your ultimate consumer guide. Tested over a month, they looked at 4 specific 5-minute modalities. First, mindfulness, which is just passive observation of your natural breath. Then 3 active breathwork types. Box breathing, which we just did with equal inhales and exhales. Cyclic hyperventilation, which is inhale-focused, so longer inhales, shorter exhales. And finally, cyclic sighing, which is exhale-focused. That's a double inhale through the nose to fully expand the lungs, followed by a long, extended exhale out through the mouth.
So what does this all mean? The data showed that while, yes, all groups felt better, the active breathwork groups completely outperformed passive mindfulness when it came to daily mood improvement. And the clear winner? Cyclic sighing. That exhale-focused breathing produced significantly greater mood improvements and the largest reduction in resting respiratory rate. It turns out forcing a long exhale is just a massive, powerful signal to your brain, telling it to calm down.
All right, Section 5, progressive muscle relaxation. We've covered the brain and the lungs. Now let's push down and out into the physical limbs with an intensely physical grounding method that's actually highly recommended by the VA's PTSD coach program for bleeding off trapped physical tension. I want you to follow along with me again, and we are going to do this together using our hands and arms. I want you to clench your fists and pull your forearms up, tightening the muscles in your arms as tightly as you possibly can right now. Hold that intense tension. Feel how tight and uncomfortable and constricted it all is. Now, take a deep breath into your belly and slowly exhale and completely release your arms and hands. Just let them go totally limp at your sides. So the crucial point is, just notice that physical contrast. Think about how your hands and arms feel right now compared to just 10 seconds ago. They probably feel a bit lighter, maybe even a little warmer, right? It is that conscious, deliberate contrast between intense tightness and total release that triggers a massive wave of relaxation throughout your entire autonomic nervous system. Finally, Section 6, your daily relaxation toolkit. We've journeyed through the science of the brain, the breath, and the body. Now let's pull all of this together into a practical, actionable toolkit you can use every single day. Look, you don't have to do all of these. You just need to pick the exact right scientifically backed tool for whatever specific stress state you're facing. If your goal is long-term brain health and neuroplasticity, go with mindfulness meditation. If you're in a high-stakes, acute stress situation and need to instantly pull the emergency brake, box breathing is your best friend. If you just want the absolute most efficient daily mood boost and physiological calming, do cyclic sighing. And if you are physically tense, feeling all that anxious energy trapped inside your body, progressive muscle relaxation is absolutely your go-to for physical grounding. And here is the most important number to remember from all of this: 5. The clinical data from Stanford and all those wild neuroimaging studies show that you do not need to spend hours sitting on a cushion on top of a mountain. Just 5 minutes a day of these structured practices is enough to profoundly alter your brain structure, slow your respiratory rate, and completely reset your autonomic nervous system. So, I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative question. Which 5-minute tool will you use today to rewire your nervous system? You've got the science, you've got the toolkit. The control is literally right there in your hands and your breath. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I absolutely cannot wait to see how you put this data into practice.